From Israeli bombs to Syrian missiles, a war that crossed the line. No more shelling, no more troops. For the first time, clean water has become the bloodiest battlefield in the Middle East. It all started with Israeli warplanes pounding Syrian cities, an offensive that flattened homes and hospitals across Damascus and Homs. But what followed was something the world didn't see coming. Syria struck back, not with tanks or rockets aimed at military targets, but with precision missiles that destroyed two of Israel's largest water reservoirs, Lake Galilee and the National Aquifer. This wasn't just retaliation, it was strategic disruption on a national scale. Suddenly, over 12 million Israelis found themselves staring down the barrel of a water crisis. What once seemed like a stable utility, running water, turned into a luxury overnight. For a country that invested billions of shekels in desalination and high-tech water solutions, around $9 billion USD annually, this attack didn't just hit infrastructure, it struck Israel's sense of invincibility. And the message was clear. This is no longer a war of weapons, it's a war of survival. Syria knew it couldn't win in firepower, so it went after something far more devastating: the civilian lifeline. The ripple effect? A nation with one of the highest GDPs per capita in the region now faces supermarket riots over bottled water. What do you think? Did Syria go too far, or was this the only way to shift the power dynamic? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and stick around, because in the next segment, we'll uncover why hitting a water tank can shake the very foundation of a nation. A single strike that dried out a nation. Syria didn't target soldiers. They targeted your faucet. And overnight, 12 million Israelis went from citizens to survivors. The destruction of Lake Galilee and Israel's national water reservoir wasn't just symbolic, it was catastrophic. These two bodies of water aren't just lakes. They're the beating heart of Israel's clean water system, feeding homes, hospitals, factories, and farmlands. When Syrian ballistic missiles hit those reservoirs, they didn't just explode concrete, they collapsed an entire ecosystem. Almost immediately, emergency alerts were issued nationwide. Supermarkets saw lines stretch for blocks as bottled water vanished from shelves. Families hoarded whatever they could find. Hospitals delayed non-urgent surgeries due to sanitation limits. The Ministry of Energy announced that reserves could only last 7 to 10 days. This is happening in a country that prided itself on being a global leader in water tech, home to desalination facilities that cost over $30 billion, about $8 billion USD, to build and maintain. But even the most advanced systems couldn't withstand a missile strike to the supply source. More than a military failure, this was a blow to national confidence. Tel Aviv, once known for its innovation and resilience, now watched as citizens filled buckets from public fountains and lined up for army water trucks. Was this a smart strategy by Syria, or a red line that should never be crossed? Is targeting water infrastructure a war crime or a tactical equalizer? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't go anywhere. Next, we'll break down how this one attack sent shockwaves through Israel's agriculture, industry, and even its political system. When war stops the water, not the bullets. You can survive without electricity. You can live without the internet. But when the water runs out, the war becomes personal. The Syrian missile strike didn't just cripple Israel's reservoirs, it cracked open the country's most vital systems. With water no longer flowing, everything that depended on it began to fall apart. Agricultural fields in the north withered within days. Industrial zones in Haifa cut shifts and halted operations. Some hospitals reported that even sterilization became selective. This isn't just inconvenient. It's economic damage in real time. Israel's agriculture industry, which generates over $20 billion, $5.3 billion USD, annually, is now facing one of its worst short-term productivity losses in decades. The Ministry of Health warned that if water rationing continues beyond 10 days, urban sanitation will become a public health threat, especially in densely populated areas like Tel Aviv and Tiberias. What's more disturbing? Israel, the poster child for water innovation in the desert, was paralyzed in 24 hours not by tanks or bombs, but by the absence of a basic human need. This new form of warfare is unlike anything we've seen. It doesn't target a nation's defenses. It targets its dignity. Is this what modern conflict looks like, crippling countries not through combat, but through collapse of daily life? And if so, are we prepared for what comes next? Let us know in the comments. Do you believe this kind of warfare is more dangerous than traditional bombs and bullets? Your opinion matters, and in the next part, we'll look at how this crisis turned Tel Aviv's confidence into chaos, with political fallout shaking the cabinet from the inside out. From tech powerhouse to a nation waiting in line for water, Israel, the land of smart cities, startups, and desalination breakthroughs, is now a country where people fight over a jug of water. It's hard to imagine, but the same nation that invented drip irrigation and turned desert into farmland is now watching its citizens line up at public pumps with buckets and jugs. In Tel Aviv, families camped overnight in front of community centers for water rations. In Haifa, elderly residents were seen collapsing from heat exhaustion after hours in line. Supermarkets have turned into battlegrounds, shelves empty, tempers high. Hospitals began deferring non-critical patients due to a lack of clean water for sterilization. Entire neighborhoods are relying on military water trucks that arrive once a day, if at all. Even high-tech offices, including global companies like Intel and Microsoft with branches in Israel, had to partially suspend on-site operations due to plumbing shutdowns and health risks. And what's the cost? Economic analysts estimate the daily losses from industrial and public sector slowdowns at around $1.8 billion. That's roughly $480 million USD per day bleeding from Israel's economy. The humiliation isn't just physical, it's psychological. For a population long accustomed to resilience, this crisis struck something deeper: vulnerability. The irony? Israel's military defense systems like Iron Dome can intercept incoming rockets, but they can't stop panic at the faucet. What do you think? Can a superpower in tech be brought to its knees by something as simple as water? Drop your opinion in the comments. And stay with us, because in part 5, we uncover the intense pressure inside Israel's government, where leaders must now decide: bomb back or rebuild fast? Strike back or pump water? Tel Aviv's most critical decision yet. When a nation is thirsty, what do you fight first, your enemies or your own crisis? Inside Israel's war room, the atmosphere isn't just tense, it's fractured. After the Syrian missile strike that paralyzed Israel's 2 major water reservoirs, top-level officials convened an emergency security cabinet session. The agenda was split into how to respond militarily and how to keep the country hydrated. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant reportedly pushed for immediate retaliation. "We must show strength," he said, according to sources. But others, including senior officials in the Ministry of National Security, urged caution, warning that another strike could trigger regional escalation, drawing in Hezbollah or even Iranian proxies. At the same time, the civilian situation was spiraling. With hospitals rationing sterilization, agriculture grinding to a halt, and supermarkets bare, the Ministry of Infrastructure proposed reallocating military-grade logistics to distribute emergency water to urban zones. That means using fuel, soldiers, and trucks, resources that would otherwise go to preparing a military response. This split in strategy is now becoming a political fault line. Opposition lawmakers in the Knesset accused Prime Minister Netanyahu's coalition of being unprepared for non-conventional attacks. Protesters in Jerusalem held signs reading, "Iron Dome can't stop dehydration." End quote. So what now? Should Israel strike back immediately and risk a full-blown regional war, or pause, deliver water, and risk appearing weak? This is more than military strategy, it's a test of leadership under pressure. Because when bombs stop falling and taps run dry, what remains is a population demanding answers. What would you do if you were in charge? Retaliate, or recover first? Tell us in the comments. And stick around, because in part 6, we'll hear Syria's chilling response and why their message is shaking the region more than their missiles. Syria rises from the rubble and fires back with words. "They destroyed our homes. We destroyed their water. We don't have F-16 second, but we know their weak points." Those were the exact words from a Syrian military spokesperson in a televised statement delivered not with rage, but with cold precision. No denial, no excuses, just confirmation. The strike on Israel's reservoirs was deliberate, calculated, and, as Damascus puts it, justified. This is a narrative shift. For years, Syria has been portrayed globally as the battered victim of civil war, foreign occupation, and economic collapse. But now, the nation is sending a different message. We may be broken, but we are not helpless. Syrian officials declared the missile strike as a proportional response to what they called Israel's brutal and unlawful air raids, just days earlier. Those raids killed over 700 Syrians, many of them civilians, and flattened neighborhoods in Homs and Damascus. According to local media, entire city blocks were reduced to ash within minutes. Damascus claims it warned the international community, but no one listened. When our hospitals were bombed, the world watched. When our children died in rubble, the world sipped lattes, one official said in a fiery speech before the Syrian parliament. Now, they argue, Israel is getting a taste of what Syrians have endured for years. The question remains, is Syria's boldness a sign of desperation, or a sign of a shifting regional power balance? Tell us what you think. Is Syria rewriting the rules of modern warfare or playing with fire? Drop your thoughts in the comments and stay tuned, because in Part 7, we'll explore how Iran, Hezbollah, and even Russia are now stepping onto the board, and why this may no longer be a two-player conflict. The board expands. Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia enter the arena. When water became a weapon, allies became catalysts. This isn't just Israel versus Syria anymore, it's a proxy war in the making. Within 48 hours of Syria's missile strike, the ripple effects reached far beyond Damascus. Iran issued a formal statement supporting what it called Syria's right to defend its sovereignty. Hezbollah praised the attack as a symbolic victory against Zionist aggression. And Moscow? Russia didn't just comment, they warned Western nations to stay out. According to regional analysts, intelligence chatter suggests Iranian-backed militias in Syria are on high alert. Drone shipments, anti-aircraft batteries, and mobile missile units are reportedly moving towards Syrian military outposts near the Golan Heights. Hezbollah, already battle-tested from years of conflict, may be prepared to open a second front from southern Lebanon if Israel retaliates. Meanwhile, Russian officials held closed-door meetings with Syrian defense leaders, raising eyebrows across NATO. Though no direct military support was pledged, the political message was loud and clear. Syria is not isolated. This convergence of interests isn't random. For years, Iran and Russia have sought to shift the balance of power in the Middle East, undermining US and Israeli influence. And now, with Israel consumed by a domestic water crisis and political turmoil, their moment may have arrived. The implications? A local conflict turning regional, a missile strike turning into a diplomatic avalanche, and every new player on the board means more uncertainty for the civilians caught in between. Do you think this is still a one-on-one conflict, or are we watching the start of something much larger? Comment below with your take. And don't miss Part 8, where we expose the global hypocrisy, how the world condemns with words, but acts with silence. The world watches, but does nothing. When missiles fall, leaders meet. When civilians die, they tweet. As Israel scrambles to recover from its water crisis, and Syria buries its dead, the international community is doing what it does best, expressing concern. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency session, but walked away with no resolution. NATO released a statement urging restraint from all sides. The European Union called for de-escalation. And the US State Department? They condemned the violence, but offered no concrete response. Why the silence? Many argue that political convenience has replaced moral clarity. Western allies were quick to condemn Syria's missile strike, labeling it a reckless provocation. But when Israel bombed hospitals and apartment complexes in Damascus just days earlier, the outrage was muted, buried beneath phrases like legitimate security interests and targeted defense. End of quote. For civilians in both countries, the message is clear. Global powers are watching, but they're not acting. In humanitarian terms, this is a crisis. In political terms, it's business as usual. Meanwhile, international aid agencies are paralyzed. Convoys to Syria are stalled at borders. Water purification units requested by Israeli hospitals are stuck in customs. And in Geneva, diplomats sip bottled water while debating resolutions that will never pass. This is the cost of geopolitical gridlock. When diplomacy dies, silence becomes complicity. So we ask you, do you think the global community is failing both Israel and Syria? Why do you think certain victims get louder support while others get ignored? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't go anywhere. Because in Part 9, we'll dive into how the people, not the politicians, are turning this war into a fight for survival, and how faith, fear, and fury are reshaping the front lines, from bystanders to battleground. When civilians become the front line, this isn't just war on the battlefield. It's war in kitchens, hospitals, and at every dry faucet across two nations. As diplomats stall and militaries mobilize, everyday people in Israel and Syria are living a very different kind of war. One that isn't fought with missiles but with empty buckets, lost sleep, and the rising fear that no one is coming to help. In Israel, public outrage is boiling. With millions still without access to clean water, social media has exploded with hashtags like #Where is the water? And #Iron Dome can't filter. Protests have erupted in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, demanding accountability. Some citizens are even forming neighborhood watch-style groups to secure scarce water deliveries, while others are crowdfunding desalination tools and importing filters directly from overseas vendors. On the other side of the border, Syrians are not just mourning their dead, they're mobilizing. In cities like Homs and Daraa, citizens have organized underground clinics, food co-ops, and local defense units. In areas once fractured by civil war, communities are now united by one shared goal: resilience. "We lost homes," one man told a reporter, "but not our will to fight." It's no longer governments versus governments. It's people versus survival. And what makes this moment historic isn't just the geopolitics, it's how ordinary citizens are becoming central players in a conflict they didn't choose, but can no longer avoid. Is this what modern war looks like now? Not just between armies but inside neighborhoods, hospitals, and homes? We want to hear from you. Are the people becoming stronger than the states themselves? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't miss the final chapter. In Part 10, we explore what happens when war moves beyond borders and into every corner of daily life. Beyond borders, when war enters the home. This war isn't ending in the air or on the ground, it's creeping into sinks, hospital beds, farmland, and family dinners. What began as an exchange of bombs between Israel and Syria has now evolved into something far more dangerous: a war with no front lines, no borders, and no exit strategy. It's not just about territory anymore, it's about life itself. 12 million Israelis are rationing water, lining up with buckets, boiling tap water, and fearing for their children's health. Meanwhile, Syrian families continue to bury their dead, rebuild shattered apartments, and live under the constant threat of another Israeli airstrike. Both nations are trapped in a cycle where basic needs like clean water, power, and medical care are now part of the battlefield. This isn't just a regional crisis, it's a preview of a global future. Because when war starts targeting infrastructure instead of infantry, no one is truly safe. Today it's water. Tomorrow it could be food, electricity, internet access, or financial systems. For a world more connected than ever, modern conflict doesn't need to reach your soil to reach your life. And the scariest part? Diplomacy is falling silent, sanctions are symbolic, and peace talks are replaced by hashtags. We're not just watching a conflict, we're watching a transformation in how nations fight, and in how people suffer. So tell us, is this the future of war? When the battlefield is everywhere, and everyone becomes a soldier of circumstance? Drop your final thoughts in the comments. Let us know what this story made you feel, what it made you question, and most importantly, what you believe the world should do next. Thank you for staying with us through this story. The war may not be over, but awareness is the first defense.